People have different views of Saddam Hussein, I get it. But he was a fucking charming bastard. Accused us of supplying nuclear weapons to Iraq. I got shot in the arse. And that moment of knocking at the door to hand my friend's dead body to his mom, if they suspected that you were spying for somebody, they'll kill you. Back in Palestine.
Palestine.
Yeah, Palestine is where I grew up, and I lived in a village not far away from Bethlehem. So the village was made up of Muslims, Christians, and Jewish people, and we had absolutely brilliant existence together. Life was very simple life because we didn't have running water in the houses or electricity, and we all ate off the land. So it was a beautiful life we had, and there was no difference between Christians and Muslims and Jewish. It was great within our village because all of us lived together, and we got to celebrate. For example, the Muslims celebrated, in addition to our holy festivals, we also celebrated Christmas, Easter, and Jewish festivals. And it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Life was very simple as well. No cars in the village. And you walk to school, and I used to walk like 3 miles a day to go to school bare feet. And, one day in June, everything changed. And that's the start of what's called the 5-Day War, June 1967. And that's when we were evicted from our village. And I remember the start of that very well. We didn't have TVs, obviously, or radios. Mm-hmm. So the first time you find out about the war was when you see the action. And when you see planes, war planes flying overhead, you shit yourself. Because fucking hell, I've never seen a plane in my life before. And to see planes flying overhead and bombing, the village. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's just, something very, very scary. And we left the village. Well, we were encouraged to leave.
Your parents, siblings?
My dad was away at the time. Went to Kuwait to try to make it. So it's just me, my mom, and 7 of my siblings. And we gathered what we could gather in terms of food, bread and cheese and so on. And we literally walked for 3 miles to get to the other side of the river of Jordan, into Jordan. And that's where he started getting processed as a refugee. And I remember, after the 3-day walk, and, you see horrible things. You see dead bodies on the way and so on to get to safety. And somebody from the UN nation, the refugees, look after the refugees, she was asking me, what do I want, in terms of biscuits? And I said, I want to go to school, and I want to try, find me a school to go to. And we lived in the refugee camp for about 3 years. And at the time, you get encouraged to become a member of the PLO, for Palestinian Liberation Organization. And you get trained. So when I was 10 years of age or 9 years of age, I look at my son now, he goes to play football, he goes to play rugby. I went to fucking left to shoot Kalashnikov or RBJ or hand grenades, etc. You become all of a sudden a boy soldier instead of a footballer, or wanted to play football. Which served its purpose because in 1970 there was a civil war between the Palestinians and the Jordanians, and you need to fight, otherwise you get killed. Otherwise, you need to shoot, otherwise you get shot. And that was a truly horrible experience because fighting was done door to door, street to street, house to house. And
Was there any other option for the
No,
young boys? Was everyone in? All the young...
most of us were in it, right? The young lads were, we were tasked with certain things, still dangerous, he's still shooting, he still gets shot at. And the most horrific experience I had at the time was I was out with two boys, same age as me, and I turned around. One was shot and gone, totally killed, died, and the other one is injured and could hardly help. And I couldn't leave my friend who died, there. And to have to maneuver a dead body is very difficult because it obviously, it's dead. So, and I had to pull him for like 50 to 100 yards to his house, right? And that moment of knocking at the door to hand my friend's dead body to his mom and dad was an experience that will live with me forever. And
was your mum witnessing these events
we
as well?
we lived in a refugee camp. So refugee camps, like houses. Well, of course, she knew that I was going out. When you go out with a gun and having to do it, right? She's half expected you come back injured. And I did go back one day injured. I got shot in the arse, my arse and the back of my leg. But so it's expected that you get injured. And, but I was one of the lucky ones that I did not die.
So when you were going through that process, did you ever think there was a way out? Or what that even looked
You get
like?
sucked into it, right? And you could never see an end when you are in the middle of a war, right? There's no one gonna win. It's not a war that anybody could win. And I think what happened is the other side managed to eliminate most of the senior fighters in the refugee camp I was in and became relatively safe. But the young boys, including myself, we managed to ambush some of their soldiers. And that's when they started searching for us. And that's when my mom thought, right, enough is enough. We need to walk out of the camp to somewhere. And we managed to come out of the camp, go to a city close to Amman, Jordan. And that's when we thought, right,
How long of a walk was that? How long did it take you to get there?
Well, it's not a very long walk, but it's trying to walk, avoiding bullets and bombs around you. And you see things like that in Gaza now, right? They might ask you to evacuate from one area of Gaza to another. It might only be like 1 mile, but the 1 mile is almost like 50 miles because you're literally navigating a lot of the bombs, the shelling around you. So it becomes a much longer walk than what it really is. And eventually we managed to leave Jordan and went to live in Kuwait, where my dad was making it at the time. And but the experience of what I witnessed in the Civil War lived with me for a very long time, because all of a sudden you are in Kuwait, you are safe, and it's a beautiful place to be in, away from the refugee camp. But I could never sleep at night. Although I had, in the same room I slept in, I had 5, 6 of my siblings. The lights had to stay on all night. I could never sleep in the dark because of the horrific things that I've witnessed. And the most horrific thing that, like I said earlier, I've done is having to take your friend's dead body, which was not in a good condition, having been shot at, to his mom and dad. And that image kept haunting me and that's why I couldn't sleep in the dark.
So you are one of the most driven, ambitious people that I have ever met. Do you think that's because of what you experienced?
What I experienced in Black September, right, which is September 1970, I think in many ways shaped my life. Never to give up, fight for everything that you can have. And whenever I look at why am I successful in this area or that area, and I'm sure you've heard some of the stories before, for me the word impossible doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Impossible is a definition the weak use it not to do the hard work. And what I've gone through in 1967 and 1970 is what drives me on.
Somehow you knew intuitively that fighting wasn't the only answer. You had to educate yourself.
Well, it's true. And that's when I remember when we crossed the river, 1967, one of the UN agents asked me, what do I want? And I said, I just want to go to school. Mm-hmm. I want to educate myself. I want to get better. And that's when we went to Kuwait.
Had you got books or anything at that stage, or was your mum educating you, or how were you getting the education?
When we got to Kuwait, we went to normal school. And, I had this, semi-decent education, but I used the war in 1967 as an opportunity to jump 1 year. So it's like when I was in Palestine in 1967, in June, just finished the second year. When I went to a refugee camp in Jordan, 3 months later, instead of going to the third year, I went to the fourth year. Because I was clever, actually. I was good at school. And so eventually when I went to Kuwait and finished high school, I finished high school like 1 year younger than most people did. And that's when I came over to England, and I was determined to come and get the best education. And I came over to England as 16 years.
Did you have to be invited to come to England, or was it?
Well, do you know what? That's the other thing. I was talking to one of my brothers the other day. Like, I relied fully on myself, writing to colleges from Kuwait, writing letters and getting application forms, filling them, sending them back to England, and going to the British Embassy, trying to, to get the visa. And I've done that all on my own, without the help of my father. Was totally reliant on myself. And then I booked a flight in June, when was it? June 76. And I thought, right, I'm going to England to study.
How old were you then? 17?
Not 17 yet. I've not reached the age of 17. Right? So it's, and I couldn't speak English. Well, hardly any English. And we, on the plane from Kuwait, I sat next to this young lad as well, who's coming for also education. And he's never been to England. So when you land at Heathrow, fucking hell, I mean, it's, in Kuwait airport, you'll be lucky to see 3-4 flights a day. And when you land at Heathrow and you look around the number of planes, you realize this is different. This is a different world.
Belongings.
Right, and that's when I started planning, okay.
So you've had a tough life, you've had an interesting life, but what fascinated me, how you then got into the university and then you started really getting to grips with things. Tell us that part, because how your university days is absolutely fascinating.
So one weekend I came to visit my friends here in Liverpool, and having spent the weekend here, I thought Liverpool is the place for me. So I enrolled in a college and I went to the university, and I got my degree. And at the time, my father, when I finished my degree, thought, right, time for you to come back to Kuwait and work. I said, no, I want to do a higher degree. And I got my PhD in what's still a record time between, my finishing the degree and finishing the PhD work. So I got a PhD at a very early age. The university were very keen to keep me for my research and I was actually a good lecturer as well, good professor. So I stayed on for a number of years, and my research work was to do with what we call digital image processing. So like every time now you drive and you speed, and a camera captures your number plate and recognizes the number plate without having somebody to read it. That's my initial, that stems from my research. So my research was to do with the digital image processing. And it was very clever piece of work. So I must have been clever at the time. I must have been good at things. And somebody else took a liking to my research from the Middle East. And I mean, quite clearly, I was still working at the university when I got a call that the University of Technology in Iraq
I love this story.
was interested in my research work and interested in me setting up a facility for them. So I said, yeah. So I set up this company, right? Because I was still working for the university. The university wanted me to do it, but they wanted a share of the company. So I said, fine. So set up this company called BMK, Electronic Consultants. So I got invited to Iraq, and I had an Irish friend who was helping me, an Irish lecturer from Ireland. So both of us, so you could imagine a Palestinian and an Irish going to to Iraq. And Iraq at that time was the darling of the West because they were fighting their arch enemy, Iran. So whatever the Iraqis wanted, the Iraqis could have. Okay? So when they approached me, yeah, do it. So we landed in Iraq thinking, I'm going to the University of Technology. So the following morning, they come and escort, in a car, take me to what's supposed to be the University of Technology. And all of a sudden, fucking hell, I'm not in a university campus. I'm in a military facility, right? And very clearly what they wanted is for me to help design software and hardware so they could guide their missiles, right? So my technology was to be used to guide missiles. So I come back here to England. Yeah, I could do it, and I could build a facility, and I have the knowledge, the technology. But obviously I needed equipment from both the UK and the US. First chunk of money was due to arrive on the 15th of August, 1990. And that's when I was due to go and get my 3 BMWs, the ones I've ordered. And yeah, I was rich, mate. And late July, and I'll tell you the significance of the 2nd of August in a minute, right? So the first chunk of money was due to come in on the 15th of August. Don't forget that money, the irrevocable confirmed letter of credit, was guaranteed by Kuwait, because the banks here won't recognize the Iraqi banks, so they needed a Kuwaiti bank to guarantee it. And in a week before the 2nd of August, I was in Iraq. And one day I get a call that I'm invited at night. Not invited, sorry, just need to be ready at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, whatever the time was. And somebody knocked at my door, hotel door. Said to me, "You ready?" I said, "Yeah." And normally wherever I go in Iraq, because my work is so secretive, I would be escorted by somebody. I had my, what they call bodyguard, but really not a bodyguard as such, but somebody to keep an eye in case I'm spying for somebody, right? And I always had my own driver, and I wasn't allowed to move anywhere without this driver and this guy escorting me. But that particular night, I had a different guy, a huge guy, come in, knock at the door. "Yeah, ready to go, come on." And he took me from the room into a blacked out Mercedes, a car that doesn't even have a number plate. And we're driving in the middle of Baghdad. Whenever there's a red light, he'll go around the red light, traffic lights, and all of a sudden I started thinking, fucking hell, do they think I'm a double agent? Are they gonna kill me? You know, that's all what goes through your head. Have I upset them? Because the guy is not talking to me. I'm literally shitting myself. And all of a sudden when we leave Baghdad into the desert, I'm thinking, that's it. This is my last sighting of Baghdad. I'm not gonna see it again. Genuinely, I thought I was gonna be killed. Okay? The Iraqis at the time, they don't mess around. Okay? If they suspected that you were spying for somebody, they'll kill you. And that week, they actually did shoot 2 British people who were accused of spying for Iran. Then all of a sudden, driving in the desert, from a distance I see a building with lights. So I think maybe they're not going to shoot me, maybe they're going to put me in prison. But this, as you're getting closer to that building, the security checks, 2-3 checks. And in the last check, I get asked to leave the car I was in and get into another car to take me into the building. And that's when you realize this is not a fucking prison, this is a palace. Right? And I thought, relief. So I go into the palace. And again, the 2nd of August is the start when a war started between Kuwait and between Iraq and Kuwait.
So you still haven't asked any questions?
I'm just going with the flow. And I go into this big hall in a palace. And that's when you get told that the president, Mr. Saddam Hussein, is coming to join us for dinner. So I got invited for dinner with Saddam Hussein, and with us at the time there was the Iraqi ambassador to Britain, who was called in for consultation. So he was having dinner with the American ambassador in Baghdad, the British ambassador, and I'm with this fucking high delegation. So I'm thinking, fucking hell, why am I with them? Then that's when you get also told, don't put your hand out to shake the president's hand unless he does that to you, right? So I'm in the middle of this lineup. And Mr. Saddam Hussein comes in, walks past most. He had somebody behind him to tell him who each one is, right? When he came to me, he must have told him who I was. I was the only one he shook hands with. I'm thinking, fucking hell. And he's, regardless what we think of him or what the people, and people have different views of Saddam Hussein, I get it. But he was a fucking charming bastard. In the few minutes I spoke to him. He's very charming person. You know, like speaking to him like I'm speaking to you now, forgetting who you are or who he is. He's a charming bastard. And, you know, like, had a couple of minutes chat with him, you know, talking about Palestine and how proud he is of me that I'm a Palestinian, helping his, you know, an Arab country and so on.
You've now quit the university with money in your back pocket. What's next?
Well, once you've tasted the life of a businessman and the rewards of being a business person, etc., that's what you want to be. And I didn't want to stay in the academic environment or work for somebody else. I wanted to work for myself. And you always, whatever we do in life, we always think ahead what we can do. We never just, I'm not the kind of person who would live in his comfort zone. I'm always thinking of what else I could do. So did I have a plan when I leave the university? Yes, I did. Right? Was the plan solid? No, it was risky. But it was the rewards from that plan outweighs the risks. Right? So I quit the university. And I remember coming out on number 2 Rodney Street. There used to be a red telephone box, phone box. And I rang my girlfriend, Mandy, who became my wife. And I said to her, Mandy, by then it's like 9 o'clock in the morning. She's still asleep. I said, I'm coming back home. She said, why? I said, I've just quit. She said, you fucking what? I said, I've just quit the university and I'm coming home. So got home, calmed her down, sorted her, and we came back into Liverpool. And at the time I lived in St. Helens. We came back into Liverpool and I bought a fax machine. I went to Dixon's electronic retail store and bought a fax machine, and I bought a word processor, and I set up an office in my house in one of the spare bedrooms. By then I made arrangement with my brother for him to quit his job in Dubai as well, okay, and to set up a company that we called Euromatic, which is European Management and Technology. So what we wanted to do to transport or transfer European knowledge, management and technology into the Middle East. And the best way to do that through training. So we set up what we call a training company. And the training company would employ the services of a consultant, somebody who's big in the field, take, for example, leadership, for example, and would organize like a 5-day training seminars and would invite people from various companies in the Middle East to participate. At the time, there was a lot of training companies in Dubai, okay? And Dubai was the favorite place because a lot of people from the Middle East wanted to go to Dubai. They could drink, they could womanize, they could do whatever. And so we decided to make Dubai our center. Muhammad, my brother, had the links with various oil companies there. I had the links here with the academia world. So we found this really good training consultant who will deliver a 5-day training seminar for us. I thought, right, all the training companies there, they run their training seminars using their training centers. So it's like going to a university environment. I thought, no, let's be different. Let's run our training seminar in a 5-star hotel. So we went to the very best hotel in Dubai, and we advertised the seminar run in this hotel. The schedule is you have breakfast in the morning, you have dinner, and you have a social day out. We take you. So we made it the whole package.
An event.
was great, better than anybody else. Sometimes the price you charge, plays mind games with the people, they equate it with quality. So rather than charge $600 per delegate, we were charging $4,000 per delegate. For the very first seminar, we got nearly 40 delegates coming in, paying $4,000 each, making huge amounts of money. So our blueprint of how to do things was the right one. And we stole a march on all the other competitors.
How often did you do these?
Oh, well, when we started, we thought, be great to do one a month. This year, we're doing about 50 a week.
Amazing.
But what else we did? And again, it's always come out of your comfort zone, okay? Being in Dubai, it's a comfort zone for everybody, etc. And we thought, why don't we run them in London? If people are willing to travel from Saudi Arabia to go to Dubai, surely they'll be willing to come to London as well. So we were the first to start organizing training seminars in London for people from the Middle East. Then all of a sudden, let's try America. People started coming to California, Amsterdam, they loved it. And we became an organization that was running a training seminar all over the world, from Australia to California. And that's what made us way ahead of the competition. Now, the challenge is to find, because whenever you succeed in things, people want to copy your success. Okay? So now, we will start running training seminars in cruise ships. Yeah, we do run seminars in Miami now, but instead of staying in Miami all the time, flying to Miami, we'll put you on a cruise ship, we'll take you to the Bahamas, Barbados, and so on. So always you need to be ahead of the competition, and you dare to be shot at.
So it seems like everything you do ends up being the best or recognized nationally, globally.
Yeah, you need to.
Is there a secret ingredient of how that comes about?
It's aiming for it, just aiming for it and recognizing the fact that, and again, it's always getting out of your comfort zone. It's so easy, so comfortable living in your comfort zone. But I wake up every morning challenging myself. What else can we do? In everything I do.
In the decade that I've known you, every time I've sat with you, there's always been a new challenge.
And I love
Some
it.
Intentional.
Mate, it's that's me. That's me. Everything I participated in horse racing, in property, in rugby, in TV, it's always been push.
So was the event still going? And
the events were still going, obviously, right? And one night I was out with my wife on Victoria Street, close by where the hotel is now. And I had a lot of friends with nightclubs, the living rooms, metro, etc. So we used to hop from one bar to another, or from one club to another. Until one day she said, how come all your friends has got bars and restaurants or nightclubs on Victoria Street and you don't have one? So I thought, we'll get one. So I started asking around, for a space. And Victoria Street at the time was very hot. There's no availability at all. And just off Victoria Street, there's a road or a street called Sir Thomas Street. And I was told there's availability there. So I went to look at the basement of that building, and
the municipal annex.
Municipal annex, and I fell in love with the whole building. And I thought,
Yeah, for
you know
anyone
what?
that doesn't know, this is a building that goes around 3 roads.
Yeah,
This
it's
isn't.
Daly Street, Somerton,
Yeah,
St. Thomas
it's
Street,
not just
and
a.
Cumberland Street.
It's not just. It's a building when people come to the city,
Uh-huh.
they take out the camera and they photograph the building and go, wow, look at that building. So it's not just any normal building.
Absolutely- It looks beautiful from outside, but absolutely gorgeous from inside. And that's when I started thinking of it as a hotel. And why a hotel as well? Because my events business relies on hotels. So I thought rather than run events in other people's hotels, I could start running them in mine. And I got addicted to the idea. And we bought the first building. Then we started thinking, well, hang on a minute. We could buy the next one.
Oh yes,
next to
so
it.
they weren't all. It wasn't
No,
one
no.
building. They were all
No,
separate.
separate buildings. So we bought the first one, then the second, and the third, and we brought in an architect to look at the 3 of them. And he said to me, "What do you want to do with them?" And I said, "Convert them to a hotel." And he said, "It will never fucking work." Right? Because what you had 3 buildings from outside that looked totally different levels. And then we thought the only way to make it work is to knock the middle building down and build something new to bring the other 2 together. Was an interesting project that took 7 years to complete, 7-8 years. And now I'm the proud owner of a fantastic hotel in the city center, which I call it's my trophy in life. I remember, because it took so long to open. We had a lot of contractors going bankrupt or through it was a very difficult project.
Remember the journey.
And it was a very hard journey. And I remember during that journey that the only person who was on site is me. Everybody walked out, and I stayed there on my own, guarding the building. And
But that's like a story of survival, because for the people who went through the recession of 2008, you started in the boom.
yeah,
Most people who are in developments or in any kind of construction industry or they collapsed. So you didn't just manage to open a hotel. There's a story behind how you even survived the period.
true. And people ask me, how did I manage it, or what mentality did I have? And I think going back to September, Black September, the civil war of Jordan, learned, the survival lessons I learned from there helped me a great deal and helped me to stay focused and see the end result before you got there. And that's what got me through. And I remember on the day we were due to open, and I had all my staff and my wife then lining up on St. Thomas Street to cut the ribbon. They were expecting me to cut the ribbon, but instead I sat in the car by the side of the road and I looked at them and I was crying relief, joy, happiness. But we finally got there, and it's been a fantastic journey.
Is there a lot of my lessons and how I've created friendship is through the stories of how 2008 recession really had a huge impact, and I still have the scars from it, and I try not to downplay that. Is there any sort of lessons or words of wisdom? I know your history of who you are as a person got you through that, but is there anything there? Because I think that's something that should never be forgotten and should be passed on, especially for someone who's got a hotel.
It's never to give up, right? And surround yourself with people. There are things you could never do on your own. You need to surround yourself with good people. And funnily enough, the good person I had that helped me a great deal at the time is my bank manager. Honestly, I mean, he was...
very few people can say that.
Very few people could say that, but, if you ask me again, what lesson I could tell people, if you believe in what you're doing. Don't give up on it. Life is never easy. There'll always be hurdles in any road, bumps. Just overcome the difficulties. Might not be easy. Take your time. Never give up. Talking about my bank manager, he was a fantastic guy, and I think even during the recession, through the difficulties, he kept sort of inviting me to go to places where, socially, introduced me to a lot of good people. And one thing he kept inviting me to is horse racing, which is something that I've never had any interest in. And I remember going one day to, eventually I agreed to go after many invites, and we went to Haydock Racecourse. And in there, I think the bank hired a box, and in the box there were a lot of good people that later on became friends of mine and helped me further on with my journey. And this is before the hotel opened, by the way. And I had a very enjoyable day. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to recreate this again, but I'm going to try to buy a horse and enter it. I mean, we had a fantastic day that day, right? And I thought, you know what, the day could have even be better had one of us owned the horse.
Just one horse?
One horse at the time, right? Just to put it in, for the day, to race on the day, and just to add extra excitement.
I think people are going to know where this story's going. Just one horse for anyone that's listening.
So it was started with one horse, recreated the same event. So invited the people who were there 3 weeks earlier, and the horse that I bought was a very good horse, and actually started the race as the favorite. He was the best horse in the race, and everybody expected the win. The bloody thing finished last, right? And I thought, what do I do here? Do I give up and walk away from this? No, I didn't. A few months later, I bought another horse that I was told could run in the biggest race in the Northwest, which is the Chester Cup. And just to have a runner in the Chester Cup will be great. The horse was probably one of the worst horses in the race, and the odds on it was 66-1. And I remember, going in the parade ring just pre-race. And of course, at the time, nobody knew me. I didn't know anybody at Chester. So when the race started, I was on the fence, like 6, 7 deep, behind everybody. So I could hardly see any action. The only thing that I could hear, but I could hear the name of my horse, Bulwark, Bulwark, Bulwark. Not because he was first or second, because he was right at the back of the race. And I'm thinking, please God, let him beat 1 or 2. Then there was a lot of commotion towards the end of the race. And I asked this guy next to me, who won? And he goes like this with his betting slip, fucking Bulwark, which is my horse, which was...
You're at the back of it.
And I'm at the back, I couldn't see anything. Not only I had a runner in the biggest race, in Chester, but I bloody won the race. And I just went ballistic, and I went straight to the parade ring, and I was jumping up and down. The race was covered on Channel 4. The F language was coming out of me like no tomorrow. But that race made me fall in love with racing and Chester. And
that must have been the biggest adrenaline rush.
Oh, mate, it was unbelievable. And the Chester Cup itself, right? Nobody in the history of, and it's been running for nearly 400 years, no one had won it more than once, except me. I won it now 4 times. But it's not just the races I've won, it's the friends you make within the racing industry. And really was very privileged to have known the Queen, to have gone racing with the Queen, and I had many happy memories with her and many laughs. And whenever I was invited into her box at Ascot, it would be an informal occasion in which...
Did you mind your language then?
Only once I forgot where I always celebrate with my tradition. So, you know, like strikers, when they score a goal, they celebrate in a certain way, right? When I win a race, I just can't help it. I just go on, I fucking won it. And I did that once in front of her. So I think I'm one of the few people who's ever got away with it. And I think the media, some of the media found out what happened that day. But look, she was fine about it, and she knew that's who I was, and you know, and everybody get excited and celebrate in a certain way. That a few years, and I'll have to tell you this story. 5, 6 years ago, I think either ITV or the BBC, obviously they knew of my friendship with the Queen, and that's when they started, planning for when the Queen passes away. They wanted to have enough material, take it out and play it. You know, people who had their links with the Queen, stories to tell about the Queen. So they came to our house 5, 6 years ago, and they psych you up that the Queen just died. And, you know, you have to talk about her life, your friendship with her. So I sat there with Mandy and holding hands, being lovey-dovey, being sad, talking about the Queen, you know, died, etc. And totally forgot about it, right? Then when the Queen actually died, they played that tape, right? But what happened since? I got divorced, so I was no longer with my wife. So everybody who's seen
You're holding hands.
holding hands, etc. Oh, they were ringing me. Oh, great to see you back with Mandy. But other calls I was getting, you cheating bastard. You're not divorced. You are with your wife. So it's racing brought me a lot of fun memories, and I have a lot of stories to tell. I met a lot of nice people, and because of with racing, most of the big owners, and I'd like to consider myself as one of them, would either be kings, princesses, rich people, who had no connection with the real people, right? Regardless of the number of winners I've had, regardless of the success, I was just the guy next door. And I connected very well with the average person. So at Chester, you see me walking around with people, talking to people. People want approaching me for photographs. I'll be more than happy to do so, signing things, etc. And I had a very, very good profile. And that's, I think, when one day I was traveling to Dubai, and I sat next to a guy who must have thought it's his lucky day, because he was the CEO of the rugby league. And I think they've been desperate for a while to attract me into the sport in order to own a club or get involved in the sport by a club, in order to raise the profile of the sport. And by the end of the flight, somehow he managed to get me interested in the sport. So I said to him, okay, when I get back from Dubai, we'll meet up again and we'll look at what this club he was offering me has to offer. The club is called Salford City Reds, as it was named. And came back from Dubai, talked to the owners, and with the help of the guy who was sitting next door to me, next seat to me, and I remember going to sign on the dotted line, and I said to this guy, his name is Nigel. I said, Nigel, I can't believe what I'm doing. He said, what do you mean? He said, I'm going to buy a rugby club, and I know nothing about the sport. He said to me, well, what do you want to know? I said, for a start, how many players make up a team? I don't even know that. And he said to me, look, in rugby league, in rugby league, a team consists of 13 players. You've got 4 small men who are the generals who do all the running, and 9 other big men who beat the shit out of each other. And that's what make up a team. So 9 big men, 4 small, and that's the team.
So then you signed on the dotted line?
I went in and signed on the dotted line, pretending to know a lot about the sport. Then a week later was our first game.
Do you know, just before we go into this, because, and I just want to confirm, one of the main things you've touched on here, and for me the most important thing is the lessons people get out of this. They don't want to see you as some wealthy guy that knows everyone, that can just buy businesses. I've known you for over 10 years, and the amount of time that you've given me, when I call you to meet up, you don't just meet up for 5 minutes, you actually spend so much time with the stories, getting to know me, getting to help me. But I know you do this with so many people in the way.
You become a fake personality. Mm-hmm. You become a fake person, right? And forgetting who you are, where you came from. And you're absolutely right. I mean, when I sat next to that guy, obviously at the start of the flight, he wanted me to be involved in the sport. By the time we spent 6-7 hours together, and me telling him stories and who I am, etc., he was more keen for me to get involved in the sport.
And he would have he actually would have understood your real value.
Just a real person, and not this guy who's got money to burn, etc. And he knows that he knew that I would add benefit to the sport, and not just by spending money in the sport.
That's one of the things I get regularly is people come to me because they think that I can invest, and they don't realize that the investment is the money is this bit.
The bigger investment is the person.
Is the time, effort, knowledge,
exactly.
Introductions, and this is so important on every part of your story that you've now told. We could break that down into hours of knowledge, wisdom, and the money side of it is actually one of the smallest parts.
So going back to
the rugby.
The rugby. So the first game of the season, right? What they didn't bloody tell me is that the club I bought, all the good players in the team left because they were going through financial difficulty, and I didn't know how bad we were until the first game. And in the first game, I said to one of the coaching staff, look, you better come and sit next to me and explain to me, what's going on, what goes on during a match. Because I didn't know about tackles, kicking, whatever. I've never watched a rugby game in my life before I watched my team, the team I've just bought. The guy must have known we were shit. We were going to get hammered, and he stayed away. So I walked into the stadium, got out of my car. Sky Sports were there to film the event. So they literally met me by the car, and the cameras were focused on me walking into the stadium. Then I go and sit in my box, and had a few drinks, and the game started. And I'm looking for the guy. Where is he? And I thought, he's lost his way. I'll watch it myself. The game bloody started, and the only thing that I could follow, genuinely, is the scoreboard. Started. We played at that time the biggest or the strongest team in the competition, called Wigan. And it goes 6-0, 12-0, 18-0. And I'm thinking, fucking hell, what have I bought? Right, 24-0. We ended up losing 54-0. Right. The next game was in France. Went there, and we came back losing 48-0. Right. Third game was a little bit better. We lost 64-4. Right, so at least we scored some points. But then came the fourth game. And we played London.
Had you figured out the rules by this stage?
I sort of, not totally, you know, I knew if you score a try, you get 4 points, and if you do a conversion, you get 2 points. And, you know, when I was saying 6-0, 12-0, you know, that's when the other teams were scoring a try and a conversion and so on. And then I was told, prepare yourself. You're going to have the first win, because we're playing the shittiest team in the competition, who were even worse than us, right? So turned up to the stadium with a big smile on my face. We're going to have a win today. And quite often I like to watch the game from behind the sticks with the fans. I come down from my box, and you know, just behind the goal, or behind the sticks as we call them, and with the normal fans. And they're all getting excited, you know, we're gonna get the first one. We got bloody hammered, absolutely hammered at home to the worst team. And that's when I realized something has to be done. And I didn't like the name, you know, Salford City Reds. It looked soft, right? So on the way from behind the sticks to going back to the dressing room or change room where the boys were, I decided to call the club, rename it in my mind. It's going to be called Salford Red Devils instead of Salford City Reds. And there's a reason why I need to bring that in a minute. And then I went to see the team and the coach. And it's like, none of them were bloody bothered. You know, the fans I was with minutes later were gutted to being humiliated like that to a team like London. And the players and the coaching staff, so what? And that's when I needed to make the change. And I made big changes. I asked the CEO to come up to see me. And I said to him, go downstairs and tell the coach, you know, his time is up. He said, what do you mean? I said, just tell him his time is up. It's, he said, can we have a board meeting to discuss? I said, go and tell him his time is up. And so he went downstairs, came back, tell me, I've told him. I asked him, can I tell you something else as well? You're part of the failure, and your time is up now. Changes now. So I've got rid of that day for the CEO. I got rid of the coach. And that's when I started making the changes, serious changes, because I wasn't going to carry on being part of a team that was getting hammered every day. And
so is there any transition where you then have nobody? You've got no coach, or have you got it lined up?
I had assistant coach.
Yeah.
Brought him in. The CEO, I brought in somebody else. Yeah. And then within 2 weeks, we started making changes, signing players, proper decent players. And within 2-3 years of that date, we were competing for trophies. So, the changes I made, I didn't make them just for the sake of making them. I made them for success. Obviously,
How did you keep the fans on side? Because that's,
because
you
they,
saw the
they
passion.
saw me as one of them.
Yeah.
I was never your typical owner, an owner of a club, whether it's rugby or football. I was one of them. I'd go to away games with them on coaches. I sit with them. True that when you are an owner of a rugby club, you need to entertain the visiting club, so you sit with them in my box. But once you've done all the entertainment, and just before the game starts, I always walk down and go and stand with the fans, or I sit with the fans. When we travel, when we're playing away, I go to the home side, with the entertainment as an owner. But once the game starts, again, I'm back with our fans, staying with the visitors. So I kept them on side. They knew I was doing the best for them. And in rugby, like in many football, there's a cap in which there's only so much money you could spend. And for a number of years, obviously, people knew I had to cheat in the salary cap. A lot of football clubs do that. I did it in rugby as well. And the authorities, to a certain degree, turned a blind eye. But the very people who wanted me in the sport, by then started wanting me out. Okay? I was called for disciplinaries every bloody month. I was going up to Leeds. They'll find something about me, about the club, about whatever, and I'm called for disciplinary. Until one day, was national news, came out that the authorities charged my club with breaches of salary cap regulations. Even me couldn't defend it because I did cheat. I did overspend. And as a result, they took so many points from my club that during that season that took us down from near the top to a relegation. And genuinely, by that time, they probably wanted my club out of the top league. So we had to play, I think we played the relegation game in Hull against one of the Hull teams.
But at that time, did the fans then support you, or because it can change very quickly? Did they keep on your side?
They were very supportive. And look, whatever I've done, that resulted in us being points taken away, they knew.
For the right reasons.
For the right reasons. I wasn't doing it for any other reason. They knew I was spending money
in the club.
In the club here. I was investing in the club. Look, we were, every season we finished last. But when I came in, we started climbing up the table. And so we went to Hull to play that relegation game. And it's a game that we knew we were confident of winning. And that particular game will go down in history as possibly the biggest sporting comeback ever in any sport. The stakes were high. 2 minutes to go. We were the equivalence in football to probably be 3 goals down with 2 minutes to go. So the emotions were very high. The Hull, because we were playing away, they were really high. They thought they survived and they won the game. Our fans, you look at them from distance, miserable, giving up, we're gonna lose. So I looked at our bench and our medical team at the time, and
Never give up.
and they were like crying, gone. And I walked down, genuinely walked down, mate. And you could see that on the coverage from the BBC, I think. Walking down, and I walked straight spoke to the coach. Said, don't give up. There's still 2 minutes to fucking go. We can fucking do this, right? And with the 2 minutes, the next thing, absolutely incredible. We went, scored 3 times. We survived. I couldn't believe it, right? 2 minutes earlier, the Hull fans were giving me that, fuck off Koukash, goodbye Super League, right? And I was with my daughter at the time, and the language that was coming out of them is... And when we won, with seconds to go...
The same celebration as the...
And you could see it, fucking won it. And I turned around to the fans, the Hull fans. But what happened next, right? Fucking hell, I thought, what have I done here? Because all the Hull fans ran to me. Because I ran on the beach, right, to celebrate on my... And they all come into me. Next thing, our fans came into me to protect me, right? And fucking everywhere on the beach became a fight between our fans and theirs. And I'm here in the middle with my daughter. I'm thinking, get me out of here, right? Eventually, I got through the tunnel into safety.
You said to me a few weeks ago, no matter where you go, trouble follows you.
But that trouble, I think I've caused myself. But I'm a human, right? I'm a human being. I'm a fan. And to be 3 goals down, or you need to score 3 goals to survive, and you do it. We all have emotions, right? And you don't just say, we fucking won it. You do a lot more, okay? And I remember an hour after the game, when calmed down, I needed to go, and I was walking out with Layla out of their stadium, and the police said to me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to my car. He said, if you go out, they'll kill you. And our fans, and mate, I needed police escort to get me out of Hull. I had a police car in front of me, a police car at the back of me, and they escorted me out of Hull and said to me, don't come back for a while.
And this is the, time and time again when I try to describe you or people say, who is Marwan, I just say, have you got a half an hour, because there's no point in me starting the story. But again, you're a family man, a father. You balance all these things with somehow on the outside. You use your emotions, and as you said before, you can sack fast, and you can hug and laugh and teach lessons along the way. But how have you balanced it between bringing up a family, traveling the world, being a public figure, balancing the books, yet keeping it all at a level where you can speak to people on the street or the people you've got time for? You've got time for everyone.
I have time for everyone because, again, I repeat, you must never forget who you are. At the end of the day, regardless of how much money you have, how successful you are a person, right? You could be sitting next to anybody. There's nothing, at the end of the day, when we finish the journey, we are the same. We get buried 6 feet under the same as everybody else. We came through the world same as everybody else, and we live the same as everybody else. So what we have is temporary. And you must never forget that you're not bigger than anybody else just because you have power, you have fame, you have money. You're still a father, and you need to be a father. You're still a friend, and you have friends. and you have work, and you just get on with everything, mate. The only thing recently that became difficult, many years ago, I did quite a few TV shows, and my kids started feeling uncomfortable about being in the public eye, for me to be that much in the public eye. And that's when I thought, don't want to be in front of the cameras anymore, until you came along and convinced me to do this. But genuinely, I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, I look at the Australian experience. I enjoyed being who I am. That's why the media loved me there.
And it's natural to you.
It's natural to me, because I don't pretend to be anything else. Judge Rinder wanted me on his show.
You'd fit quite well there.
And they asked me if I ever had a dispute with somebody.
Which week is that?
And I did actually have a dispute with another club, another owner of a rugby club. And we filmed that. And that became the most entertaining and the most repeated episode of I think they repeated it 12 times. And then soon afterwards, and again, being a migrant myself, right, has an influence on me being successful. And I got approached about 5-6 years ago to do a TV show in which I didn't know what was the title for it was going to be, and in which it's very similar to The Apprentice, and this was for Channel 4. But instead of giving me the best of the best, they gave me the worst people you could imagine. People who just come out of prison, people who've never worked before, people who were drug takers, etc. And they wanted me to try to make something out of them, using my migrant mentality and who I am, etc. And
so they chose the right person for the job.
Apparently it did work. And so yeah, we've done the Channel 4, but a number of candidates. So it was a genuine show, and I had to choose from. And but when the filming started, it was my way. I've never done any scripted work whatsoever. And I had to make something out of those guys to try to reflect my mentality or use my experience, my life experience, try to encourage them to change their ways. And I put them through the racing, through the rugby, through the hotel, and the show was extremely successful. And but then all of a sudden, I was very well known in rugby, very well known in racing world, but then to having a show that attracts 2.5 million viewers, you become very, very famous. All of a sudden, people stop you on the street, because I came across extremely well. Even some people said, and we're talking about critics on newspapers are, saying I came across better presenter than Lord Sugar. Alan Sugar, and
You're able to balance. You're able to balance humor,
And-
knowledge.
Exactly.
You're able to speak to the Queen or these people you're helping. So if
And
it's relatability.
And three people of the five who started became a success, and two of them worked for me, and one went back to Newcastle and worked in Newcastle. And these are three guys who've never worked before or never held a job before. Okay, and but then, in the interest of the privacy of my family, really, and my kids were getting uncomfortable me being on national TV, and I took a decision then that that's it, no more TV shows, and I didn't want to carry on with it, and I gave that all up. I enjoyed what I did, and my family became more important.
Well, I think the future of this podcast and our friendship is going to continue for a long time. And for the people that don't know, you've got days and days and hours of stories. You're a man with a huge heart.
You need to invite me again.
Well, and that's definitely what we're going to do. You've got a huge heart, huge personality, huge pockets, and a huge amount of time for people. And I'm really looking forward to having Marwan Koukash Part 2 on here, because people could listen to you and they wouldn't have to listen to anybody else with the stories, the lessons, the advice, the guidance, and again, I have to thank you for your friendship and for everything, the opportunities and the time you've given me. And again, I just thank you for the time you spent with me today, and I really look forward to getting you back on here later on in the year, and by that stage we will have people that will be hooked on Marwan Koukash Part 2. So thank you for everything you've done for me.
Don't thank
thank
me,
you for
mate.
the wisdom and I really look forward to.
Can I tell you something? Right, next time when you invite me, buy a bloody better coffee. The coffee here is cheap.
Deal. Thank you so much, Marwan.
Thanks, mate.